I'll read the sunshine law notice.
Great.
As required by the Open Public Meeting Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting was provided on Tuesday, July 28th, 2020, by posting of said notice on the library's public Board of Trustees website. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, the meeting is being held on the Zoom platform. Roll call.
Mr. Brisson,
Here.
Mr. Bullock,
Here.
Mr. DeBosch.
He's
Mr.
here.
DeBosch, I know you're here.
He's muted too.
Well, how did he get muted?
I don't know.
Now I don't even see him. Oh, he's probably a phone number.
Yeah,
No?
I can see him.
David Morissette's house.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Let's try that.
I'm muted.
Okay. All right.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, here.
Jim, you here? Great. Ms. Meiser, Mayor Tersigny,
I'm
Dr.
here.
Kehoe, and me. Okay.
Okay.
Ralph,
Are we ready to for new business?
Think
Can you-
so.
Okay, county council contract dispute.
Well, did everyone, I guess what I sent you today was just a slightly amended version of the memorandum I had sent before about the whole issue with the payment that we supposedly owe the county, and giving a little history of the fact that we had these discussions. Well, first of all, when in very early, when it wasn't even a done deal that the federation would end, where freeholder Sarnowski said at a public meeting that they were willing to forego that aspect of the contract. And then said that 3 weeks prior, he had a meeting with Mayor Ellis and then Council President Tersigny, and where he put forward that proposal to negate that. And then in 2018, there was a meeting between CFO Merlo and myself and Mayor Ellis, where then CFO Olszewski indicated the same thing, that they would not pursue that extra money. So the question is, do we emphasize that and talk to the parties involved and say, hey, what changed? Can we rely on what you told us? Because we've been relying on what you told us in terms of budgeting and everything else. If that is not on the table, my memorandum put forward a couple of options, which would also argue that the amount that they're arguing that we owe them is up at least up for dispute. They're asking for basically the straight purchase price for items that we bought as long ago as 2011, and it seems unlikely that would be the rational definition for the value of these materials, because you bought something in 2011, 2012, 2013, county residents already had their value out of those things for all the years they were in the library. It's not as if they're being deprived of something. So my adult services librarian, Stephanie Rath-Tickle, who in her previous life was a government auditor, ran a couple of spreadsheets with 2 different ways of calculating depreciation. According to the IRS, the most favored way of calculating depreciation for print materials for books is the declining balance method, which takes what we owe to the county down to a very low level. A straight line method, makes us owe more, but certainly nowhere near, this $375,000 that they're talking about. So there's avenue one of challenging this is, hey, we had assurances from parties at the time that they weren't going to pursue this, and we made decisions based on those assurances. Two, if we do owe the money, it's not the amount that they say, because we need to talk about what the contract means when it says value. And then finally, and there's really no disputing this, that contract says we don't have to pay money, we could pay books. So my gosh, if we were going to close the library, the last thing you'd want to do is pay any money ahead of that time, because if you close the library, they can have all our books, and then boom, the obligation is discharged.
Yes, and I think we should be able to discuss this with town council, because if they don't know about it, it's certainly a fair assessment of the situation. And they should be defending us if in fact this is the case, because you know, they're part of this whole operation.
Run this by our lawyer.
Oh goodness.
Was that Ralph?
Yeah, that's Ralph.
Okay,
Yeah,
Ralph,
yeah.
coming across, and it's not audible.
Okay.
Very gravelly.
See where we stand, where we think things might stand.
And it's echoing with it as well.
Yeah, Ralph, I'm not sure anyone could understand you, unfortunately.
No.
Is there a place like type? Yeah, chat.
Might be able to type in the chat. You should be able to type in the chat window.
Mr. Chairman.
Under more. Yeah, if you click on more at the bottom
Oh,
right.
we run this by our lawyer. Mr. Jurley asked, have we run this by our lawyer? No, this is not an aspect we've run by our lawyer yet. We certainly could. Well, I take that back. In the midst of time, I had conversations with Attorney Tice about this, but we don't have, you know, a written opinion now.
Okay. Okay, so we need to get a written opinion from him, and we need to involve town council with this information, and any other information we have as an argument against this. And furthermore, people who have said they were going to back off of this for the reasons that they said they were supposed to back off for, should, if they have changed their minds, should be responsible for telling us why now all of a sudden they've changed their minds.
Mr. Board.
Just, if I may, okay. If I may just fill in
I'd like to
another
say
little part of the backstory, that when we had the conversation between CFO Merlo, CFO Olszewski, Mayor Ellis, and myself,
Mayor Ellis.
the initial purpose for that call was we had a dispute with the county over their final payment to us. That we had
Right.
calculated our payment for, you know, so many years under one particular formula, which was the standard way of doing it. The last year they decided to apply a different formula, which, you know, caused them to pay. They wanted to pay about $77,000 less than what our calculations showed. And, you know, naturally we wanted to play hardball and get the amount that our calculations showed that we were owed. But the result of this conversation was, all right, we will accept the lesser amount that you are offering in exchange for your assurance that you're not going to go after this extra money.
Mr.
So there's
Chairman,
consideration there, you know.
Mr. Chairman. Hello,
And I think,
The floor, Mayor.
this, back when I was Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes.
I had a meeting with Freeholder Director Gardner and the Business Administrator, Alex Lazorzak, last Tuesday. It was a peaceful meeting. It was a good meeting. And as I remember correctly, whatever you want, way you want to say it, I was told then, and I'm being told the same thing now, that we owe $375,000. And the only way we would be relieved of that obligation is Phillipsburg joined the county system. We've lost the federation of $125,000. So that's $500,000 before we even start. And what we did, the democratic process, because the democratic process is allow the people to vote if they want the lot. It's not going to be up to the 5 council and the mayor. It's going to be up to the voters of Phillipsburg to determine this. And I saw, I think, one thing on your email about a handshake or something. I am told, and my story hasn't changed since I was off council for 2 years, and when I met with Freeholder Sarnowski, it's the same. I'm hearing the same story. The 375, they're willing to do a 3-year installment payment, 125, 125, 125. Your federation money to fuel your salary is gone. We were used to get 600,000. We're getting nothing now. And we're going to leave it up to the taxpayers and the voters to determine it. It's not going to be determined by us. But I will say this. Being in the library the first day that ever opened in 1969, when I was there as a child, this isn't our fate. I'm saying we are allowing the democratic process to take place. But your taxes, if people decide they want this, the taxes are going to go up significantly. Okay, that's what, and we will have all the numbers together by August the 18th. I think CFO Merlo is on there, and he'll reiterate what I'm saying, that we have a professional firm that we have under contract. We'll have all the numbers. I pretty much know what they are as a financial person. I see, I'm not going to make any comment, but I'm going to let the professional come up with the same numbers, come up with the numbers and spell it all out at the August the 18th meeting. And it will be transparent. It will come from the professional, and CFO Merlo, who's on this call, will reiterate the same thing I'm saying. We're not closing the library, the council and the mayor. We are not doing it. We're allowing the voters of Phillipsburg to determine yes or no.
So let me ask you a question. Will the mayor and town council make a recommendation that we go with the county, or will they remain silent?
I don't have that answer, but I would.
Okay, we're going to need that.
Ed,
you don't have that answer.
Ed,
it's political.
we're leaving it up to the voters.
Okay, so
And that's the democratic way of doing it.
Okay, so will the mayor and town council say to the voters, you need to vote in favor of putting this library to the council?
Hard to understand you, Ed.
No, Ed's fading out. Emil Brisson is loud and clear.
Okay,
Ed, may I address something for just a minute?
go ahead.
Because I feel we
I'm
have
not
an
making this
agenda,
up.
and the first item on the agenda was to talk about this payment that we supposedly owe the county. And before we leave that, I would like to find out, how was the clause in the contract that said we could repay this debt with books? How was that discussed?
That assets, it's called, Deb, and assets. I think heard
It
as
said
assets.
books. It said, I believe it said books specifically.
That's assets of the library.
Right, but the contract said that we could fulfill an obligation, even if it is indeed owed, we could fill that obligation with books. So I don't understand the need to make a cash payment if the board agrees to make it even at least some of that payment in terms of physical books, because the contract gives us the right to do that as far as I read it. And I'm just curious as to how that has factored into
This-
any of the discussions.
It says by equivalent value of collection materials.
Right, well, yes, so books, magazines, DVDs, anything that the book owns, and that the library owns.
Which means
The
they can't
contract,
just- Go
the
ahead.
contract does not state who has the right to decide what they want, the money or the books. That's open. And again, it does not state what value means. I mean, most people would think there has to be some form of appreciation in there. Otherwise, we are giving the county an incredible gift of, the full purchase price of materials that we bought in 2011, 2012, 2013, that the county residents had full ability to use for all those years. And I know she's not a party to the contract, but the library director, the Warren County Library Director, had specifically stated in a public newsletter that in any formulation of what the Phillipsburg Library would owe, you would back out items that have been discarded, things that could not be returned, like databases. Again, things that can't be returned, like newspapers, things, because a lot of the library materials collection that we use with Federation money, it's not all just books. Materials mean a lot of other things. So to not address that aspect of the contract, which has a lot of monetary implications, I'm having trouble seeing how it's just the county says 375 and there's no discussion about this.
Right.
There's factual.
That's not democratic. That's
No,
certainly
not at
not
all.
democratic.
Yeah, Ed, can I speak? It's Jim.
Yes, you have the floor.
Yeah, I didn't think we were going to meet tonight to hash out again whether to do the referendum. I thought you called it because of the response to this claim by the county, and I think they've twice, did not collect on their claim. They had, as you know, they had our money. So if I owed somebody money and then somebody did some work for me, wouldn't I deduct that work from that check and then send them the remainder? They had the opportunity to do that. They didn't do it because they had no intention of these books.
Exactly.
This is just a ruse to make the referendum look better.
Exactly. And furthermore, if in fact we owed them $300 and some thousand, in one respect, that's county citizens' money that it's owed to the citizens of the county. So on the other, out of the other side of their mouth, they're saying, but don't worry about that. We'll forgive that. You don't owe us that. Okay, as long as you join our system. That's first of all, it's like bullying us. And secondly, if that then they're telling everybody else in the county, oh, we're forgiving this $300,000 of your money.
And I want to say one other thing, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
You may by the freeholders. And Mr. DeBosch, you were a freeholder yourself, were you not?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, I know you were. The reason I said that the way the agreement was stated, that in the agreement that it said that X amount of monies had to be allocated for things, and 93% of that might have been high 80s, early 90s, that all the money went through. It was salaries and wages, and the paper said there was 11 employees. And when I read the budget, there were 17 employees, and 93% of the money was going to wages and salaries.
But what does that have to do with?
It has to do with the agreement, Mr. DeBosch.
No, it doesn't.
That's what
No, it doesn't.
Ed, we're going to leave it up to the voters.
Okay, but now you're getting off the subject.
I like this thing, but that's you say it's not democrat. What isn't democratic about leaving it up to the voters? And we're going to have it all spelled out for you.
Well,
CFO Merlo is on the call, I believe, and he can say the same thing I'm saying. I'm not going to argue with you.
okay, well, that's okay.
We're not closing the library down. That's the bottom line.
All right, here I have a question. How much is the county going to charge us for the library in 5 years? Can you guarantee what it's going to be? You're telling us our taxes are,
Wait, hold on, Ed.
how much is our taxes gonna go up in 5 more
It's gonna be
years?
considerably less than what we were paying now.
Sure.
That, it was stated in the paper that you would take
Okay.
$1 million. It's not gonna take $1 million or,
So you're telling
I
us
can't hear you, Ed, you're all chopped up.
more than me. Your taxes are gonna go up.
I'm not gonna argue with you, Ed. I consider you
But the county's already pulling this, as far as I'm concerned. they're
I
pulling-
knew,
And then, so tell me, in 5 years, can somebody guarantee us what they're gonna charge us?
I believe, why don't we get through the numbers first and we can look at that.
Our citizens. And I hope that they wake up to that fact.
Can we move on?
Yes.
I would like,
I have
yeah,
a
Mr. Chairman, could I address something about the contract in the books?
Yes.
The contract stated that we would spend 10% of our overall budget with both the county and the town money on not just on books, but on library materials. Many years we achieved that, some years we did not. The formula that the county CFO has applied assumes rightly that we would have spent 10% of every year's budget on books, and that's how they made the calculation. What we spend on personnel is irrelevant to that calculation. They just look at the books. We were close, not always right, but regardless of what we spent, we still go back to that issue of the contract where we, it's not clear at all that we have to fork over $300,000 of town money based on this agreement. I think we owe it to the taxpayers to make sure we're not paying what we don't have to pay. Again, if there is a referendum and the library closes, we fulfill that contractual obligation by giving them all our books. And that would way more than fulfill their terms under the contract. So let's just,
Ed, can I,
It's a bonanza for them, bonanza.
yeah,
Tim,
Ed,
you have the floor.
thank you. I guess what disappoints me the most about this discussion is that the elected Phillipsburg officials aren't fighting for Phillipsburg.
Exactly.
They seem to be just accepting, the county says you owe us this money, well, we owe them the money. And I haven't heard anybody refute our arguments that 2 times they waived this clause in the contract.
Excuse me, Chairman.
Yes.
I'm the clerk. I just want to interject a moment. I understand, and when the meeting happened on Monday, the president of the Friends of the County Library, I believe, was on, and she quoted some minutes that were discussed from the freeholders, Jason Sarnowski, and where they said that we did not owe the money, although it was never confirmed in a resolution by the freeholders or by us that I'm aware of.
Right.
I've been looking for that.
Okay.
I don't think it's a closed discussion between the freeholders and council. I think this just came polite to us, and that's why they were acting on it. But because of the deadline with the election, that's why they wanted to make sure that the people had the opportunity to vote, and it didn't come down to a council decision. There's 15,000 residents in the town, and they certainly, 5 people and the mayor cannot make that decision. So they wanted to open it to the public.
You made a good point. There's only a deadline if you make one. It didn't have to be this November.
Well, the problem, the reason why the deadline came up is because the money is not in the budget. Well,
Right.
a lot
Right.
of people had, we took a lot of cuts this year. So in order to go forward, we'd like to make sure that the opportunity is there. If the people agree, we'll certainly have to raise taxes to support that. If they, and I know every one of us that works for the town lives in the town, we've all used that library. It's dear to a lot of our hearts. We do not want to see it go. I can tell you that. I had all my children went through that library and my grandchildren are there.
We haven't even got, like Jim says, we haven't even gotten anyone from the town to support us. That deadline is a deadline that didn't have to be set because we need time to hash this all out. That deadline's going to come up too quickly. It's not fair, it's not just, and it's not right.
I understand that from your perspective, but from council's point, the budget as a whole for the town is suffering. And we're pushed into a corner with this from the county.
Well, it's
I
convenient.
just wanted to voice that. I'm not,
They can say we don't owe them. They can say we don't owe them $300,000 if we join the federation. And join the county system. It's a shame. It's interesting. I hear them saying that they're suffering that they can forego over $300,000 just for us to sign on the dotted line.
I think it would be a very welcoming to have the county officials and a few library officials and a few council members all sit down together to discuss this. It's very important to our people.
It's
Wanted to,
absolutely a great comment you just made because no one said it to this point.
I
Something that's
want
that important. Why wasn't it?
I think that it's early in
Mr.
the.
Chairman, I believe they would do that. Since Vicky
I-
brought it up,
And
I
then,
just didn't think you would want to.
and then if we have to go, we have to go
No,
to
I
court.
don't
How soon
I-
do you
I-
think we can do that? By November?
I believe they would talk to you, Chairman, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, me. No, not just me.
No, the whole board, the whole board.
No,
Mr.
but right, I agree. The
The
board
whole
should be.
board,
I just
whole board.
wanted to bring that. I didn't mean to interrupt your meeting. I just
Appreciate your.
Not just you, the whole board.
expressed myself on that.
I have a question.
And if I can help make that happen, I certainly will. If there's anything I can do to help that
I have a
out, I will help instigate that if you need me to.
Thank you.
I have a question for the mayor. Mayor, I'm wondering if you were aware of this phone call that Deb Messling was talking about that occurred in 2019 when you met with the freeholders.
2019, Mr. Brisson, I wasn't on council in 2019.
I'm
Now.
asking, when you met with the freeholders last week or whenever it was, were you aware of this phone call that Director Messling is saying they had in 2019, in which CFO Oshevsky said we would not have to pay back the cost of the materials?
I was aware of that we owed the money, and the only way we would be relieved of the money, Mr. Brisson, is if we join the county system. That's what I believed back in 2000. Hold on now. I'm not going to get trapped into anything. Okay. I was under the impression that since when I was a council president, to kick this can down the road for many years now. And now the time has come, and I was aware of the same situation as what they're telling me at that meeting last Tuesday, not this Tuesday, the Tuesday before.
So if I understand you correctly, you are saying.
That's all I'm gonna say, Mr. Brisson.
Well, he gets to talk.
Mr. Brisson, I'm done talking. I spelled it out. We're gonna have the numbers together by the 18th, Mr. Brisson. Thank you.
What I'm saying.
I'm not answering it. I'm done. I've said what I have
Okay,
to
Let
say.
Emil talk.
Emo, ask the question anyway.
Mr.
Ask the
DeBosch,
question anyway. You
and
have
when
the-
Mr. DeBosch,
Yes.
when you spoke to me in that meeting, you used profound language and I didn't appreciate it. Thank you.
No.
Okay, Emo, you have the floor. No one else is to speak or you'll be cut off.
What
Go.
I'm saying is that it sounds like when the mayor met with the freeholders, he was not aware of, let's call it mitigating facts that might have led to a different outcome of that meeting. I'm also wondering, Director Messling is saying that there was this phone call in 2019. She described what the outcome was from her understanding. She said that Mr. Merlo was on the call. I'm wondering if Mr. Merlo recalls that discussion.
I'm looking, if Mr. Murillo would like to talk, I can unmute him.
So I remember Deb and I going up to the county and sitting with the CFO, Oskensky, or however you say his name, and we were discussing the final payment that the county was supposed to make to us. We didn't agree, and to this day, I don't think we agree with the way they calculated. They kind of used a little funny accounting there to come up with it. I apologize. I don't remember a phone call last year.
It was the year before,
The
Bob.
year before. Well,
It was 2018.
even the year before, the discussion would have been about the final payment and not about what the town owes the county, because we were still part of the federation at that point.
But
They wouldn't have been asking for money back from us.
I would be happy to speak to that. I mean, obviously there was nothing more, there was not even a handshake because this was on the phone. But my recollection is that Mr. Olszewski said, oh, we are not, that's fine. Somebody's been looking through all of this for money. We are not going to pursue it. Don't worry about it. Just go, and it was kind of a gentle person's agreement, I suppose, which is maybe I've learned a lesson that you should never do it that way. But that is my recollection, that it wasn't necessarily a quid pro quo or a matter of consideration, but Mr. Olszewski said in that conversation, oh, we don't really intend to pursue that, which would only reinforce what Mr. Sarnosky said in a public meeting way back in 2016, and then apparently in a private meeting with Council President Mr. Signey and Mayor Ellis at the time, that he would advocate us not having to pay. And so I mean, it's a question of like dueling recollections, I suppose. But if that can't be resolved, we'd still go back to the wording of the contract and say what in that contract requires us to pay money as opposed to materials.
It's in the second addendum clause. I think it's the 6th clause. It's the last paragraph of the second addendum. It clearly states between materials or a cash payment back. And I believe, Deb, you were given a copy of the letter that the county did send to Mayor Trusigny. Am I correct?
I did get it, but again, the contract says the contract.
Did you share it with the board?
Everyone got it.
Okay.
In fact, the board got it before I did.
On how they came up to the money is right in that letter.
But the contract itself, the second amendment to, which you all have in your materials tonight, board members, the second amendment to the federation agreement states that our obligation could be fulfilled by money or the equivalent value in our collection. And then you can't pretend that's not in the contract, because it is.
No, I definitely agree. It's either money or books or.
So I would, again, the argument I would make is if, wait till the referendum goes. If the library and the town loses, then there's no point. We don't have to owe anything because we can give them all the books, and that would fulfill.
That's not what would happen, but you're correct. We would not owe the money back. They have claimed that they would waive the fee.
But we wouldn't need to waive. We don't need to have them dangle that, because there would be no fee, because we could fulfill our contractual obligation with the equivalent value of library materials.
Right.
You could do that.
My understanding is that if the voters, if the voters vote for joining the library, the county library, if they vote for joining the county library, we wouldn't be responsible for any payment to the county. That would be waived. The books and all the materials would be possessions of the town.
And in fact, we could, even if we win, and if the county wants to pursue what they said they wouldn't pursue, we could still fulfill a lot of our obligation with materials. We don't need as many materials as we used to need because we lost about half our patrons. So a lot of our duplicate titles, we would be happy to give to the county. And it's not up to them to say no. That would meet the letter of the contract. And I'd be very happy to start compiling a list of things we will give to them. We don't need to give them money, at least not as much as money as they say. And again, to not even look at the ambiguity of what they mean by value and not look at the fact that books depreciate faster than just about, you drive out of the car and your car depreciates in half. I mean, imagine books. To just roll over and say that we owe the money without examining that is mind-boggling to me.
Suppose we have to argue that legally,
Mm-hmm.
to have to do that by November is where that timeline of November is absolutely atrocious and wrong.
If we were to do what Clerk Kleiner was saying before and set up a meeting with the county and the council, the mayor, to hash this out, I'm assuming that by that time, the council would already have approved the referendum, and the referendum would be on the ballot nonetheless. Even if we came to an agreement, the referendum
Right.
would still be on the ballot. I have another question. I'm wondering if anyone spoke with Director Messling about this situation before there was an effort to bring it to the council for an ordinance for this referendum. Did anybody talk to her about whether there was a way to not have to deal with paying back this $125 a year, $125,000 a year? Sorry.
Of course not.
Deb, did anybody?
No, and the plans to put a referendum were a total shock to everyone on staff, to friends of the library. It was a total shock, and that still bewilders me. I don't understand why the professionals who are kind of intimately involved and have a lot of the detailed knowledge of this weren't brought into the conversation earlier. I just don't understand that.
Well, that was convenient because of the time frame.
Yeah.
Because we're doing it by November and we don't even have the opportunity to talk to our own town council. We're talking about having a meeting with us and the town council and the county. We need to meet with our council members first to talk about this.
I'd be glad
They
to.
represent us. If it's fair, we should be in one room together. Forget the county being involved with that. We need to talk to our own council members yet. Our representatives, people who are supposed to be looking at our best interests.
I can certainly arrange for that to happen. I'll talk to them and we can set something up in the next week.
I mean, this is
Yeah,
information.
Question
This is
for Vicky?
disclosure of
sorry.
this stuff. I'm sure they don't know all this that we're talking about.
You're correct, they don't.
May I ask a question specifically to Vicky?
Yeah. You have the floor.
If Vicky, if we can set this up, would that be a public meeting? You know, the full board and the full
Yes.
council, that would be a
It would
public
be,
meeting.
yes,
Okay.
if
Just making sure. Thanks.
Any other
that's what we'd like to do.
Or you can meet with two council people and it would not be an official meeting.
Correct.
But if our board is there, it would be our official meeting for us.
Right.
Yes, that's right. I believe that, yeah.
Any other comments?
I still think we need to get some feedback from our lawyer on what his take is on all this.
I agree, Ralph.
You want to know what Mr. Merlo thinks of this? Is that correct, Ralph?
Ed, you're also cutting out at times.
Sorry about that. I don't know why. So, Ralph, you want to know what Mr. Merlo thinks of this? Is that correct?
What's that?
Okay, Mr. Merlo, can you comment on that?
Are we asking for Mr. Merlo? I can mute him.
What was the question?
Yeah, what was the question? I didn't hear anything.
Question is what he thinks about our argument. Is that correct, Ralph?
I think that our lawyer has to look this over and see what our liability is. Is there any ground for what the county is asking for?
You should probably type that in chat. I'm sorry.
I can't wait till this version of this meeting is over. So Ralph is saying, run it by our lawyer, see what he thinks about what we owe and how we pay it back.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Okay. Fine.
I have a question. If the council, and I'm assuming that the council is going to vote or do the second reading on Tuesday, August 4th. No? Vicky, can you unmute Vicky?
No, Mr. Brisson.
Oh.
I apologize. Mr. Brisson,
Yes.
the referendum vote will not be until the 18th of August because it had to be advertised out for 10 days prior to the next vote.
Okay.
So that'll be the 18th. And by that time, we will have the numbers together for the budgetary costs for next year so that we can make sure that the public is fully aware and understanding of what that
Okay.
will burden everybody.
So as a follow-up, if the council passes the referendum on a second reading and it's ready to go onto the ballot in November, can it be removed from the ballot if we come to some sort of agreement? Or does it have to stay on the ballot?
Well, the county clerk has a deadline for printing ballots, so that's really the practical side of why you don't have really too late to do it.
Right. I can check on that date with Holly Mackey to find out
So
what
once
the
it's on the ballot,
last possible date is.
I mean, it's a binding agreement, right? A binding referendum.
Correct.
Once it's on the ballot and voted on, then you have to live with it.
Any other comments?
So, yeah, Ed, so as I take it that the clerk's going to speak with the council president, I guess would be appropriate, and then get back to Deb with a date where we could meet. Is that where we stand?
Yes, I'm already working on that.
Can that be a live? Can that be an in-person meeting?
As long as everyone wears their masks, I wouldn't care, but I suppose it could be Zoom just as easily, Vicky. Man.
We cannot have an in-person
Oh.
meeting open to the public. So
Okay,
because
right.
we're limited with
That
people. So it would have to be Zoom unless you only have 2 council members and the mayor there, and I could be there as well to record and
That is correct.
whichever board members that you can elect to come and not have a full board, to have a
Gotcha.
preliminary discussion if you'd like.
Thanks, Vicki.
So I just want to say that I do support things that have been said about trying to work this out without having to go to a referendum, and that we should be able to look at paying back what we owe if we have to do that with materials rather than money, and that we should be able to include, we should challenge the idea of what does value mean in the agreement, and that we should be able to do it with depreciation of materials, and recognizing that the people from the townships got to use these materials. So there should be depreciation.
Any other comments? Okay. That was the essence of our discussion. Unless somebody else wants to bring up something else related to this business only. If not, I'll entertain a motion to.
Oh, Ed, but there's other agenda items?
Okay, I have them covered up. Hold on.
Sorry.
Oh, the construction grant, implications of the construction. Sorry.
I'm just curious because, you know, this is my first time, you know, I became a director in a municipal library in 2016. So some of the vagaries of state law escaped me for a bit. But if we got a state construction grant and had to certify that we would keep the library as a functioning library for 20 years after receipt of the money, how does that impact any plans to close the library? According to the resolution, which I sent in your materials, there was a resolution promising to keep the library open through July 2nd, 2021. Would we have to pay for that half of the year? Would we have to pay the county library tax and also support a library for that period of time?
Any comments?
Nobody knows. I mean, I think that's a question that needs to be raised, because if we have to
Absolutely.
return that money, that's like $366,000 that we'd have to return to the state.
Right, that was given to us by the state under the agreement that we operate as our library. Okay, not another library, as our library for 20 years, and that time period is not up. And if we do not operate as our library, the town of Phillipsburg's library, we have to refund the money.
And I will say, I mean, I had a conversation with people at the state library about this, and it's a little difficult having conversations, you know, with people still working from home, et cetera, and they're looking into it for me. But I'm not even completely confident that the resolution that was passed in July of 2001 was in fact accurate, because I believe that the regs say that you have to keep the library open for 20 years from the awarding of the grant. And the grant wasn't awarded in July, it was awarded in November. So one could argue that we would our obligation would be to keep the library open through November of 2021, or else had to give that money back. I don't know, but I think that's something we really need to know before we go forward.
Deb, while you're giving homework to our board attorney, you should ask him that question.
Well, he's working, you know, I did raise that with him.
Okay.
You know, the regs as they existed in 2001, you know, time marches on. I have the regs for the current construction grant, but you can't rely on that. So yeah, I hope to have some discussion of that on, you know, with people on Monday.
Okay.
But clearly at minimum, we have a resolution that the town passed that said that affirmed they would keep the library open through July 2nd, 2021. And I don't know how that factors into anything. Will we have to give that money back? I think that's something that absolutely needs to be asked.
I mean, it says it in the contract.
Yeah.
It says if we were not operating as the Phillipsburg Library, we would have to give the money back. I mean, that's pretty standard in a lot of these government contracts.
Right.
Sure, they don't give that money to a library and then you turn around and do something else with it.
Right.
Now, admittedly, we're at the end, close to the end of that 20-year period, but indeed, we're still within it, though.
Right. Okay, next item. Validity of Monday's council meeting.
Shall I address this, or?
Yes.
Okay. We fielded calls and texts or posts and everything all day on Monday because no one had the passcode to get in. And to this day, I don't think the passcode was listed on the town council's website. Generally, every other meeting I've seen recently has all that standard Zoom information, including the passcode, but this one wasn't there. It wasn't in the newspaper ad, and it wasn't on the town website. The morning of, it was on Facebook, which not everyone has. So I don't know if someone in the community was motivated to do that, they could challenge that, that the meeting was invalid and has to be held again. In the interest of transparency, because we did see a lot of people and various social media groups griping that I tried to get in, I tried to get in, and couldn't do that. And they were citizens who, wanted to listen or wanted to weigh in. And
I didn't know how to get in. I mean, how important would it be for a board member?
That's it. And honestly, we sort of guessed what the password was, and we got it out to people to the extent that we could, but we can't get it out to everyone in the town of Phillipsburg.
I didn't know to ask anybody.
Yeah.
Well, that was advertised in the paper. The passcode was in the link that was put out by my office. And we too received a lot of calls on it. The passcode for all our meetings has been the same the whole time. And there was over 100 people on that meeting on that Monday, which is the most people that we've had on any of our meetings since we started the Zoom.
Vicki, people who don't usually go on to the Zoom meetings for the town council meetings would not necessarily know that code.
No,
Right.
but the code posted in the link that was out.
Vicki, I would actually have to challenge that. I mean, I see it was posted on the town council's Facebook page, but someone sent us a screenshot of the town council's website, the public website, not social media.
It was in the newspaper.
But not with the passcode. Not with the passcode, just with the Zoom link, and that gives you nothing. And that's why we started getting kind of frantic calls that day, because there was not a passcode in the newspaper.
Let me see.
I had posted something on what's going on P-Burg to let people know about the meeting and to discuss the agenda. And I got an email back that showed 3 people who, during the time of the meeting, were posting on there, commenting, how do I get in? What's the password? So there were people who weren't able to get in.
Well, any of those people that missed that meeting certainly can come in on the 18th and have the opportunity to speak. I spoke to 7 people yesterday in my office that called my office as well. There's been a lot of calls and confusion about this whole situation. I'm checking the ad. I was on vacation last week, so I'm checking to see what ad went out to the paper, but I can't pull it up fast enough while I'm trying to
Okay.
listen to
Don't
you
take a
talk.
vacation. That's your punishment, Vicky.
I attempted it anyway. But, you know, as tonight's meeting wasn't perfect as well either, and
You're
5
right.
minutes before the meeting. So these glitches do happen for all of us in this new form of COVID stress that causes us to try to grasp the last second here. So, you know, by all means, you know, it happens, technical difficulties across the board.
But I think
Tired of it.
the question is whether the meeting and the vote would be considered valid if people could not access it. You know, so, and as an analogy, if people were told, well, the meeting's going to be in the community room at Phillipsburg Housing Authority, but they get there and the door's locked, they can't get in. It's similar to not having the password. And there were people who couldn't get in.
I don't know. I mean, I know there was more people on than from what I got, you know, only a few calls. I had calls during that meeting too, which, you know, we were given the passcode and people still couldn't get in, but maybe sometimes like Miss Messling messaged me tonight, so you gotta refresh your page. You know, I mean, it happens. It's not a foolproof program. I mean, there was over 100 people on that. Like I says, the most that we've had for a public meeting. I don't know. I mean, certainly somebody can challenge it, but I don't know if it's challengeable or not. I'm not in
The only thing I would say is that tonight, I agree that tonight's meeting was not done properly because we had the wrong Zoom address or whatever, but we're not going to take any official action tonight. We're just having a discussion, but they had official action at that meeting.
Right, so the question is was it regulatory, on a regulatory basis, proper? Just like a council meeting, just like any other public meeting where we have to follow rules and regulations. Was it regulatorily done properly? If not, then there's the answer. If it was, then that's the answer. It's not a matter, and I'm not blaming you, Vicky, okay? This is not a
Oh, no, I understand that.
I'm not you, but you know, let's suppose you gave it to the experts and they didn't print it. It wasn't there. And if it means the meeting isn't legitimate, it isn't legitimate, period.
Well, as far as I know, the meeting
I mean,
was legitimate.
It's close
The
to
action was taken. If it was a regular council meeting and that had happened,
It was printed.
everything still would have been valid.
yeah.
I,
Well, that's what I want to know. If it's valid, it's valid.
as far
And
as I
there's no
understand,
argument.
it's valid.
Fairness is another thing, but that's not always coming into play here.
And to the debacle tonight, that was just an example. I wasn't saying that, you know, it was just an example to say that these things happen.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, any other comments on that? Hearing none, the proposed meeting between trustees and council. And Vicky, you're gonna
Working
arrange
on,
that?
working
Okay.
on.
Okay. Deb, any other members? Do you have any other comments, any other questions?
I don't.
And just a question, we're still having our regular meeting next Thursday?
Unfortunately, you'll go through the Zoom problem again.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry.
right.
Okay, hearing no other comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
So
what about public comments?
Who was that?
That was me.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Oh, I made the motion.
Okay, Jim made the motion, Emo the second.
What
Any
about,
comments?
are
I
we
meant to
doing
motion
public
if I
press?
was on mute.
I didn't have public comments on the agenda, but we could certainly open it up if anybody wants to.
Okay, do you want public presentation? Sorry about that. I'm used to it being like a
One that
speaker.
I got had public presentation on.
Oh, it's on there? I apologize, Emil. I meant to take that off.
Okay,
So I guess
so
Ed,
you're
you
gonna
could
open
call
the
for
floor
anyone who
to-
wants to speak and I'll unmute them.
okay. I do not see anything here. Is there anyone in, any member of the public that would like to ask a question or make a comment?
They could put something on chat if they wanted to.
We're going to give it time to make sure.
Yeah.
that happens.
Hello. I just want to thank all of you. It's wonderful to know that we're not going to just accept things, that things are going to be investigated. I put a question in the chat. Is this offer or this from the freeholders stating that we're not, if the referendum passes and the town joins the county library system, that $375,000 will be forgiven. Is that in writing anywhere?
Not that I'm aware of. Anybody else?
I'll just make a quick comment about that. If you don't mind. Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yes, you have the floor.
They've made it perfectly clear, each one of those freeholders, we're leaving up to the people to vote for it, democratic process. But if it happens that people vote to join the county system, that we would be relieved of that $375,000. But I believe what they say.
Okay,
Because
so
they said
that doesn't answer the question. My question was, is that in writing? Because if we are to believe what they said, Freeholder Sarnowski said in a public meeting in front of a lot of people, and there's documentation to this, that they would entertain forgiving that. This was 4 years ago. So how
they will do it. I've heard it.
But how do we know that?
We don't.
You know that because you were in the room with them. But
I will get that in writing.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate that very much. Keep attending. Your voice is important. Okay, any other members of the public? I see we had a question from someone named Seltzer. I just think we need to have all our facts before we make decisions. Would you like to make a comment?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I just think this has come about in an inappropriate, half-baked situation. I remember when this came about the first time and they said that they were going to forgive it. I have not been attending meetings on a routine, regular basis, but I will be going forward on our town council because I think our town is being bullied by the county. They want this money for some reason, and I'm not sure what it is, but I think our council needs to stand up to them and do something about it instead of just giving in without a fight. This is our town. That library is so important to so many people in this town. Once it's gone, we will never, ever get it back. And I think if we put a referendum out there, because of the current economic situation brought on by this pandemic, people are going to do anything to save a few dollars in their pocket today, not realizing what they're losing in the long run. And I don't understand why we're not fighting harder as a town to make that happen.
I agree that there are a lot of questions. I think more effort was put into planning and agreeing on having building a new pool, which is good for 13 weeks if you're lucky every season, as opposed to defending what we're talking about. But we'll see about that going forward. I appreciate your comment. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak?
Deb, do you need to get names from people?
Pardon?
I'm wondering if Deb needs to get names from people who are speaking for the minutes.
I actually do. I have Ms. Seltzer. Is that right? And what is your first name?
Tanya, Tonya.
Gotcha. Thanks.
And
Thank
if
you.
you want my address, 1000 Hill Street, Phillipsburg.
Thank you.
I spoke at the meeting. My microphone does not pick up on my recordings. I am typing and reading my comment into the video. What I said follows. The Phillipsburg Housing Authority canceled a public meeting because a password was not published with the Zoom meeting information. This was done on the advice of the attorney for the Phillipsburg Housing Authority. The attorney for the Phillipsburg Housing Authority from the firm Florio Perucci, Steinhardt and Capelli said that having the meeting without providing the password would be a violation of the Sunshine Law. Further background I did not state at the meeting. As the Phillipsburg Housing Authority meeting was getting ready to start, the attorney found out that the password was not on the official notices of the meeting. The meeting was canceled, and the attorney advised that the meeting would take place in the future after it was properly noticed. Having a Zoom meeting with a password is essentially equivalent to having a meeting behind locked doors. For each individual that has the password to the meeting, the door has essentially been opened. Under the Sunshine Law, the door should be open to all who wish to attend, so the password to the Zoom meeting should be present on all legally required notices of that meeting. I find the argument that there were a lot of people who attended the Zoom meeting and the password was published on a random Facebook site, so therefore the requirements of the Sunshine Law were met to be a fallacious argument. Not posting the password on a legally required notice and posting the password on a random Facebook site seems to me to be the equivalent of hiding the key to the locked doors at a public meeting under a flower pot in the hallway. Some folks somehow knew where to find the key to enter the meeting. Some folks knew they could contact the people who hid the key and they would discover the key. I found the key because I spent quite a bit of time searching the hallway until I finally discovered the key. Some folks found out about the key from others who discovered the key after spending time searching for the key. Some folks never were able to obtain the key to enter the public meeting. Because the doors were essentially locked to the July 27th, 2020 Town Council meeting, and there were people that were locked out of the meeting, I believe that this Town Council meeting violated the Sunshine Law. Therefore, any action taken, such as an ordinance passed at this Town Council meeting, is not legitimate.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'm not sure I see everybody who's there. We'll give it another minute. I think we've heard from everyone.
Chairman,
Yes,
I did speak with our attorney in the interim on this to find out if our meeting was valid. And he said it was in the paper in the notice time that was appropriated and that it was proper, so we were good.
he knows that all of the information that was required was in there,
That's what he said.
because the point of the question is that since it was a Zoom meeting and the password was not in there, that's the point. And is he assuming that that was in there? Does he know it was not in there? I mean, apparently some people here have documentation showing it wasn't in there. So he should know that.
Well, I questioned him and that's what he said to me. I was just relaying that.
And you even specified that the password was not in the
Correct.
information. Okay. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Vicky. Any other comments? Okay. There's no executive session, correct, Deb?
No.
Okay, now I'm gonna make a motion for adjournment.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay, any comments? Hearing none, do a roll call, please.
I'm sorry.
Will you do a roll call?
Oh, I apologize. Okay. Mr. Brisson,
Yes.
Mr. Bullock,
Yes.
Mr. DeBosch,
Yes.
Mr. Drurley,
Yes.
Ms. Meisner, Mayor Tersigny,
What, end the meeting?
Yes.
Dr.
Yeah.
Kehoe. Not here. Library director, yes. Okay. We are adjourned, I guess. then.
Meeting's adjourned. We'll meet the next regular meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, thank you.
Same time, same channel next week.
Okay, talk to you then.